Okay, guys, so we're making a mandala. Once you start, I'll give you an example. Do you see the petal shape here? Just repeating over and over and over and over. So all we do is we draw the shapes individually, and it all just repeats. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna start with paper, and the easiest part first is we're going to start with a little circle. So right in the middle, a little circle. Okay, and I'm going to actually make it a little thick. So I made it a little bit thicker. Okay. And then I'm going to make another circle, but it's going to kind of come out a little more. So see how I made it a little bit further away from the small circle? And then what I'm going to do now, this is where I'm going to do a pattern. The pattern is just going to be lines. And you can do as many as you want. It's going to go all the way around. And then what I like to do is I like to make that outer circle thicker. That way you can see it, and it kind of gives it a border. So I'm going to make that thicker. Looks like a beach ball right now. Make it a little thicker. Okay. The next pattern. And the next pattern is going to be a petal. And see, it's just like an upside down U, just like that. Now that means we're going to draw the same shape. We're going to repeat it all the way around until we hit the petal. So I'm going to do another one and another one. And sometimes when I draw it, my petals aren't quite exact, which is okay. But if you see, I'm just going all the way around until I hit the other side. Okay, so that's for the petals. So sometimes I like to just make them thicker. Look like a flower wheel right now, right? The edge is a little thicker just so you can see them. Okay, now you're like, what do we do now? So now we're drawing another circle. These circles act like borders. It's kind of like a picture frame. So we're going to draw a circle, and then we're getting back into a pattern. So this will be the pattern. It's like a teardrop, and the teardrop's going to touch the edge of the frame, and I'm going to repeat it in between each petal. So you guys see that? So there's 1, 2, 3, and they're in between the petals. So I'm going to put another one here and another one here. And then you guess it's just going to repeat. That's why these are kind of nice, is because what you're drawing, it's going to be the same thing over and over until you get to the end and can't draw anymore. And then I want to be able to see these. Sometimes when we draw a bunch of lines, it gets kind of hard to see what we've done. I'm going to take my pencil, or you guys take your pen and pencil, and I'm going to shade each one. And that way this shape's going to stand out. You're going to go through and do each one. I'm going to go do this one too. And when you go through and shade these, then you're going to have, it's going to let different shapes show up a little better. You'll be able to see those. And it helps it decorate your mandala a little bit. Okay, so now you can really see them. Remember, this is kind of our frame. This is what's holding in all these shapes. So if I look next, I wanted to decorate it with some lines. So what I'm doing is pretty much, I'm just repeating a lot of the pattern that's already in the picture. So I'm going to draw 4 lines. So I'm going to draw 1, 2, 3, 4. And if it's a pattern, that means I'm going to repeat it in the next section. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is why I think they're nice is I don't have to think of anything else. I've already thought of what my pattern's going to be. And I'm just going to keep going. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're going to go all the way around, repeating that pattern until we fill this little box. Those will be the last shape or section. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. I have to count sometimes because sometimes I'll do too many lines. So it helps me to count to make sure I've got the right amount. So if you look, each section now has the 4 lines and it just repeats over and over. And what I like to do, I mentioned again, I like to make the border thick. I'm going to make this outside border thick as well. So I'm just going to kind of go back over that line and make it a little bit wider. And it helps you turn your paper. It's much easier to turn your paper to draw than have to try to figure out how to make your hand turn. Go all the way around, make this thicker. Okay, so now it's kind of got another border. And then I want to do a new pattern. So my new shape is going to be a petal shape. So it's going to go up and come back out. Reminds me like of a maybe sunflower petal. So you probably have guessed we're going to repeat that shape all the way around. Okay, so when we do this, we're doing the big shapes first. We're not adding any little details yet because you need to see where the big shapes are going to go. And sometimes, again, when I draw them, they're not always exact. I try to make them be exact, but they don't always turn out exact. So I'm going to keep going all the way around. So it takes longer when you have a bigger circle, right? Because you've got more shapes to draw. Well, I should have one more. So now I've made it to the other side, completely all the way around. Now we're going to start adding details. So I'm going to draw a spiral. So it's the same thing. It's just going to repeat. And the spiral kind of the line just goes around itself. Like a spiral. And you can just keep repeating that spiral. Sometimes it might get a little bigger as I draw. It totally looks like a spiral 9. Fancy 9. To write our 9s like this. All the way around. All the way around. All right. We have the petals inside. Do you see the little white petals inside? We can also add some details inside here. And so I think what I'm going to do in here is I am going to make a V. So that's going to be the V. And what I'm going to do with each one is I'm going to end up shading in each V. So I'll do one, and then I'll make another one, and then I'll shade that one in. Sometimes it's easier to do it, as you go, to shade them in as you go. That way, at least by the time you get to the end and the other side, you finished those. So I'm just taking them like one at a time. Just kind of color that one in. Go back. Color this one in. Get all the way. Look, I'm almost to the end, right? That'll be my last petal. Let's do one more V here. And then our last one. Now we've got our little V pattern going around. All right, I'm looking at my other picture. Okay, so now we did spirals. We've got our petals that are pointed. And again, I want to make the outside of these really thick so that what happens is the shapes will stand out a little better if you make the outlines thicker. So to see how this one stands out a little more compared to like this one, because the line is thinner. So even if you just have a marker, you could just go over it like one more time. That's all I'm doing. I'm just going back over it so it's a little bit darker. Go all the way around. You're just kind of repeating your pattern. And once you draw the first part of your pattern, you don't really have to think too much about, oh, am I drawing another pattern? Because you're just going around and drawing that same pattern. And then if you have like any colored pencils or crayons or anything to color these in, oh my goodness, it's so much fun because now you have to choose colors to fill it in with, right? We're just doing the line drawing right now. We are not even coloring them in yet. And that is for sure something you could do if you wanted to. Through thick. And see how I'm turning it? It's a little easier to turn the page. Final one. There's so many. So many petals. Okay. So we did the outline. And then as I look at this, I had a little circle here. So I think I want to repeat that in my picture one more time. So remember the spiral we made? I'm going to actually make one of these go through and make them be a little thick circle. So it looks just kind of like that one. So I'm going to go through each one and make a thicker circle. It kind of reminds me of a peacock feather a little bit. I'm just going to go around, make that a little bit thicker. And your petals, even if your petals are rounded, it still works. It's okay. Some of my circles are small. I have to fix those. All right, let's see where I'm at. I've got 1, 2, 3 left. So 1, 2, 3. 3 left. All right, let me just look and see. Yep, I got all of, oh, this one could be a little thicker. And maybe this one could be a little thicker. Okay, so I went through all of those. All right, our last thing we're gonna do to kind of finish off the mandala is I'm gonna do, I like those stripes, so I'm gonna do some that go this way. So I'm gonna do 3. So 1, 2, 3. And I'm gonna do that all the way around. 1, 2, 3. And see, I'm kind of just hitting the tops of my petals. And then I just turn it. And it's gonna follow. They're going in between the petals. Boop. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, almost to the end. Sometimes there's, our space changes and it gets a little small. That's okay, you just fit it in there. Just fit your lines in there. All right, let's see. I've got one more space left. So my last space, I'm gonna close it off. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I also think sometimes when I draw, sometimes I draw a little light. Sometimes I really am trying to make my lines a little heavier. Push down. I'll just push down a little heavier just so I can see them better. Plus, if you did decide to color this in, you'd have really nice lines to color in between. Almost like a coloring page. All right. So, and then of course, the last thing you want to do is you want to sign your name. Let people know that you made Mandala.